A lot of focus on revenue collection. Let's now get some understanding of that and a few other issues in the budget with Kenyan economist who's also a senior advisor to Saudi Central Bank. That's Mohamed Wehliye. He joins me now. Thanks very much for speaking with me tonight. So let's start off on that story, revenue collection. Is there too much focus on revenue collection?
Yes, I think we have too much focus on revenues, and that's not necessarily where our problem is. I think our problem is on the expenditure side. First of all, revenue, we have two problems. I believe the focusing, the focus that they make every budget is, as I always say, pie in the sky. It's never met, and yet every year you keep on adding 20% on last year's. Yet we don't meet last year's revenue target. Right. The second thing is I think we're focusing too much on revenue. We're collecting a lot of money if you look at it. But the problem is because the expenditure side is, whack. It's completely gone out of control. So if you have this crazy expenditure that's keeping on going up and up and up all the time, even the big revenue you're collecting
will never be enough.
Would never be enough. So I feel, I've been looking at the story, the previous story, and I think KRA is always, thrown under the bus unfairly.
So where should the focus be, if not on revenue collection?
We don't have a revenue crisis. We have a debt crisis. We keep on spending what we don't, or what we cannot afford. So the revenue, in my view, is, diverting the attention to somewhere else, so that then people can say, oh, it's because of leakage, because the base, is not enough, we're not collecting enough money. That's not the problem. The problem is on the expenditure side.
What would we cut back on?
Well, there's so many things. Like we're spending so many things on unnecessary stuff. The projects, there's also the crisis of pending bills. If you look at, the budget itself, the pending bills are not included. And these have been accumulating a lot. So we have a pending bills crisis. We have, expenditure that we keep on talking about fiscal consolidation. The last 3, 4, 5 budgets, yet revenue, the expenditures have been going up. So I don't think these guys are serious. Okay,
so cutting back is where we should be focusing on, cutting our expenditure.
Of course, of course.
Okay, then there's also, of course, the issue in line with that of the deficit, which that is the number that we've been throwing in Kenyans' faces all day long, over 600 billion shillings in terms of the deficit.
It's bigger than that. The deficit, if you look at 2013-14 financial year, all the way to the one we're budgeting for now, we've never met our revenue targets. So basically what happens is you have this elevated or exaggerated revenue target, you don't meet it, then what happens? The shortfall, you borrow. Then that means your deficit is not what is actually presented. So all these projections we make every year are just projections. You need to look at the actual numbers. So you need to do what is called back testing. The actual numbers tell us that our deficit is 7, 8, 9%. If you add pending bills, double digit. So, and if you do 4, 5, 6 years of that kind of deficit, you know where you're headed.
Where are we headed?
We are headed for a debt crisis. We already have a debt crisis. So the problem with the budgeting that we do now is we're focusing on the wrong things. We are massaging the numbers to look good. Last year, Rotich told us that our deficit will be what, 5.8? What was the actual number? 6 point something. The previous year, 5 point something. What was it? 7 point something. So this is because the revenues that they set, they know they're not going to meet it. Okay. So all they want to do is to look good when it comes to budgeting. But the problem is, what you need to look at is the actual numbers. It's not the focused numbers. In
just one sentence, if you were CS of Treasury today, what would your budget look like? What should be the
I would
areas?
Not want to be a CS today in Kenya, no way.
If you were advising him, where should we focus on?
What we need to focus on is, if you have to do what Ghana did. You have to do what the UK also do normally, in fiscal discipline. And what you need to do is you need to say, in the next 5 years, I will need to reduce my total national debt by 200 billion every year. That way, you automatically control your expenditure. In fact, even expenditure, debt ceilings and all these things, you don't need it. All you need to say is, I will not have a national debt that is higher next year than it is this year for 5 years. If you do that, from 5.4, 5.2, 5, 4.8, you automatically control your expenditure. But the way things are going now, we are headed for a very, very big problem. And I think it's unfair that maybe people who are supposed to be concerned are not actually concerned. And that's what worries me most.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. That's Mohamed Wehliye. He's a Kenyan economist and also senior advisor to the Saudi Central Bank. It's good to see you, and it's good to have you in the country, especially at a time like this.
Thank you.
Asante sana.